Again to another episode of the HoriZone Roundtable. This is Bob McDonald, and I'm back on Twitter. I'm at Bob McDonald. Jimmy Lemke, who you can find on Twitter at PantherU, he will be joining us a little later on the show. But today we've got a great show again. Having a lot of these this summer, but this one I'm super excited about. Today we've got a Detroit Mercy legend, the all-time leading scorer in school history, and the founder of SportsTalk2319.com, has been doing a lot of work this last year, especially during the NBA draft. Rashad Phillips.
Thanks for having me, Bob. I appreciate it.
Yes. So I guess the first question I wanted to ask you is kind of what was how did you start off with start off with the site? What were kind of the building blocks, if you will, of putting it together and kind of how it's grown since then?
Well, for me, I'm such a huge advocate of basketball in general. So from the beginning, my love and passion for college basketball just was very influential, because there's so many kids that don't get a chance to get previewed or get featured on huge media platforms. So I felt that myself creating a SportsTalk2319.com, that it was the best possible place for kids of all of college basketball to get a chance to be featured on my show. So that was kind of the driving force up front. And then over time, it just started to grow. I started to get calls and do interviews with different coaches from all over the country. And it just turned into a huge hit, and it started to kind of run itself over time. And here we are today, and it still has taken off. And I'm very proud that I've been able to create a platform for other kids to be heard.
Great. I have to ask, where did the Yoda thing come from? I got to ask about that.
Yeah, well, it's funny because, I didn't give myself that name. There's a guy named Lance Bayless, is a great friend of mine, and Julian Tyler is another friend of mine. Those two guys kind of would call me that when I was living in Michigan. They would say, man, you're just like Yoda, like any type of basketball questions or any type of things that pertain to basketball, it's like you always have like an accurate answer for it. And so they kind of gave me that name years ago, and everybody loved it, and it was fitting for how I am. So we just all kind of ran with it.
There you go. So, like I said, I know during the draft, right before the draft, I saw you were really busy on the site, had a lot of different videos up, had a lot of different episodes up.
Yeah.
And so now we're kind of in the summer league now. So
yeah.
Obviously, pretty busy, especially for some of those college kids who are really hoping to kind of bump their, up their stock here for the pros. And the one person that really has kind of stuck out to me, at least at this moment in time, is Kendrick Nunn from Oakland. And he talk about an amazing situation. He comes from goes to Oakland, and then he ends up he unfortunately doesn't get drafted. There was a little speculation on whether or not he may be a late rounder, but he did end up signing with the Golden State Warriors. And he's currently playing in the summer league right now. And he's doing pretty good. He's definitely been a big contributor so far in the summer league.
Absolutely. He has, Kendrick Nunn is a guy that a lot of people don't know. He was a big time scorer coming out of high school, went to Illinois, transferred down to Oakland. So this is really a Big Ten point guard. So he's more than credible to do what he's doing. He was third in the country, second in the country in scoring behind Trae Young. So this is an obvious guy that's capable of putting the ball in the basket. He's a volume scorer. He's an underrated passer. He knows angles. He knows how to play the right way. But more importantly, right now for him, it's all about situations. And if you look at his situation right now, he's in a perfect spot because he's playing for Willie Green, who's doing a fantastic job of coaching him at Golden State, which is a former HoriZone League great himself and a former teammate of mine. So I'm very excited to see Willie coaching and watching Kendrick Nunn hold his own at the summer league level.
Yeah. So in terms of Kendrick, I guess my question is, because it is the Golden State Warriors and they are the defending two-time NBA champions, and they just signed Boogie Cousins, so add a little bit more firepower to a team that's already got enough firepower to kill a horse. Where do you see Kendrick Nunn kind of falling within their situation? Is he going to spend a lot of time in the G League? Where do you kind of see him fitting into that organization at this moment in time?
Well, I think it will probably start out as a G League assignment, but he fits the Golden State way. Like I said before, this is a guy that can stretch the floor. He's a volume scorer. He can make a lot of shots. He's understanding that language over there and that culture at Golden State. So, but they just signed Quinn Cook to a nice deal, and they're kind of like similar in style. So I just believe that Kendrick could be a guy that can just kind of fill in this season not because he can't play at the NBA level. I believe he's an NBA player. I just think that he'll get caught up in the numbers game at Golden State. But he's going to be tremendous, whether he's in the G League or in the NBA, and I think he'll have a tremendous output regardless.
Sure, great. A couple of the other names that have popped up on G League rosters that I wanted to talk to you about are a couple of the two UIC former players. One is Tio Diassi. I understand he is with the Suns right now on their team, and the other one is Dikembe Dixon.
Yes.
And Dikembe Dixon, to me, was a little bit more of it's kind of a unique situation, because here's a guy who spent last year. He came off the injury, played last year, and then he decided he was going to go pro. And he's made his way onto a summer league roster. In his case, where does he go from here? In terms of the pros, is he gonna spend some time overseas, or is he going to be able to prove himself enough to make his way onto a G League roster and potentially into getting a chance to get on an NBA roster sometime down the road?
Well, you never want to limit players. What I'd never want to do is limit kids when they're chasing their dreams and their goals. So first of all, I think that he has the ability to play at that level. But it's going to become a numbers game. When you go in as a free agent, sometimes it's not about how good you are. It's about how much space the team that you're playing for has. So he's going to have to find the best situation for himself, whether that's if it's the G League or overseas. It could be financial reasons. So there's a lot of factors that go into making teams when you're in that position, in that situation. So, but here's the kid that has a lot of ability. He's long, he's rangy. He's coming off that injury, but I've watched him on tape, and I actually like what I saw. He's a two-way guy. Reminds me a little bit of Corey Brewer. But we'll see how that plays out for him, but I wish him all the best, and I'm definitely keeping a close eye on him.
As am I. Now, Tio Diassi, I know he is. I know, if I understand correctly, he already has signed a contract overseas prior to signing with the Suns for the summer league. So for him, it looks like he already kind of knows. He kind of knows where he's heading for now. But he also, again, he's also, he was the Horizon League, Defensive Player of the Year too. So at the same time, with him, I'm actually kind of curious if he does find some success. Also, if he finds some success in the Summer League, or even in Europe, I'm a little curious as to kind of the direction he will end up going as well. Just because he does have that defensive part of the game, which we obviously saw all last year in the Horizon League.
Yeah, obviously he's going overseas already, so that's kind of his fate is kind of sealed in that regard. But again, this is a kid that's one of the best shot blockers in the Horizon League and in the country.
Absolutely.
I believe Agent Penova from Marshall led the country. Mo Bamba was third, and he was somewhere around that ballpark. So he's a tremendous weak side shot blocker, great post defender, high energy utility guy. Kind of has a little bit of that Ben Wallace type of style of play. So he's going to be a guy that's going to have some tremendous games overseas, and he may make his mark over there and be able to make a nice financial gain, take care of his family, because at the end of the day, you just want to put yourself in the best possible position to put food on the table and provide for your family.
Absolutely. And of course, the other thing, and those were really, and maybe it's just me, but and maybe because I'm so more used to seeing more Horizon League faces on Summer League rosters this year, that I only see the three, and then of course a couple of Juwan Howard Jr. is on the Knicks roster this year, and a couple of other holdovers. I know, in spite of the fact he played his last year in Louisville, Trey Lewis is also playing this year in the Summer League as well. As far as kind of the Summer League, especially maybe not just for the Horizon League, but for mid-major players in general. Have you seen if it's maybe kind of a platform to get some more exposure prior to these regular basketball seasons, both here in the United States and internationally? Has it been kind of a a potentially good springboard for kind of displaying your talents to maybe not necessarily the pro scouts here, but maybe some pro scouts overseas?
Yeah, anytime you can play under the watchful eye of the NBA, you give yourself a chance to better yourself. There's really no alternative in regards to playing with the most important eyes watching you. So the Summer League does, I think, is the best outlet for guys that's not even going to make the NBA, but just to have that stamp of approval that you played for an NBA team in a Summer League. That kind of gives you a little bit of a stamp for a guy that maybe didn't play Summer League. So, yes. Sure.
Yeah, I agree. I know that, and like I said, again, you do see some faces that you haven't seen before, like a Trey Lewis, who actually has spent some time in Europe, if I'm not mistaken. He just won a championship in, I want to say, Germany. I cannot remember for the life. Yeah, I should know this, but I don't remember. So a guy coming off of that and then getting back on a Summer League team, and I keep seeing the video out of him on Trae Young, earlier this week, and I'm like, everybody keeps calling them Cleveland State products. So I'm going to go with that.
Obviously he played in the Horizon League. It's legit.
Yep.
Legit.
Yep. We'll allow it.
Yeah.
So one of the other things that I did want to talk to you about is kind of the current state of the league as it is now. And for selfish purposes, I'm actually going to harken back to something you had tweeted out a couple months ago about one of Cleveland State's incoming recruits, Rashad Williams.
Yes.
where you said he was one of the guys that could be one of the great guards in the league, and that's pretty well. That's a pretty well, pretty high a high bar there for him. Tell me a little bit kind of about specifically his game that you felt was kind of stood above the rest.
Well, again, when you look at Rashad Williams, this is a kid that's been around me since he was born. I'm really good friends with his dad.
Okay.
That's where he gets his name from. So outside of that, yes, father named him after me. We're really good friends. But not only that, just the fact that I've watched Rashad grow for so many years, and he's the ultimate scorer. He's 6'2". He has unlimited range. He can put the ball on the floor. He's tough. He can defend. Everywhere he goes, he wins. He's a high character kid. Comes from great family. So, obviously me playing in the HoriZone League and I know how the league is structured, and he is perfect for that league. And the HoriZone League doesn't have a quote unquote superstar, and Rashad Williams has a chance to be just that in the HoriZone League because of his playing style and just the way he carries himself. He's such a good kid.
Yeah, I know. A few weeks ago, I had Dennis Felton, the head coach of Cleveland State, on on our podcast a few weeks ago, and he was just as high on Rashad as you are. I personally, and again for selfish reasons as a Cleveland State guy, can't wait to see him and Tyree Appleby in that backcourt.
Oh yeah,
cannot wait for that.
They're going to be dangerous. They're going to be dangerous. Cleveland State is a team to watch in that league. Obviously, Wright State because Loudon Love is tremendous. He's a space eater. He reminds me a lot of Vitaly Potapinko, who played there years ago, and he was a lottery pick coming out of the HoriZone League. So Coach Nagy does a great job with those guys over there. And also, UIC has some talented guys. So you can never count Oakland out because Coach Campy does a great job of putting points on the board. So I'm excited just to watch the league as a whole this season.
Yeah. And that's kind of one of the other things I did want to with regards to kind of the HoriZone League in general. I know earlier this year we this past year was admittedly kind of a down year for the league. And where do you see kind of the improvements coming from a conference level? Because you already see it with Cleveland State. You have Wright State with their they're the defending the defending tournament champions. You have Northern Kentucky, who's probably chomping at the bit to get some kind of revenge over their ouster in Motor City Madness. Where do you kind of see the league in terms of kind of improving upon last year?
Well, it's going to all come down to the players at the end of the day. You have to have individual performances especially in small leagues, small conferences. You have to have a guy that can carry that conference. And last year, obviously, it was Kendrick Nunn. Kay Felder was one year. Kiefer Sykes did it from Wisconsin Green Bay. So we have to have better individual players in that conference in order for us to be able to hold our own within the country.
And that's kind of the other thing too, and again, maybe it's because we see a Kendrick Nunn, we see a Ty Odiasi and a Dikembe Dixon, coming out, but then you also see kind of on Northern Kentucky's end, you see with Drew McDonald, you see a Loudon Love coming out of. You see a Loudon Love coming out of Wright State. Obviously, Tyree Appleby. And Steph Kenich, I thought, was kind of the breakout from last year. We didn't even know anything about him last year coming out of Cleveland State. And, the improvement of him kind of took everybody by surprise, really.
Yeah. Yeah, you're going to need more players like that in the league. And once you get on the – see, one thing about the mid-major level, you don't get a lot of opportunities to play on the big stage. So you have to take advantage of your opportunity. And that's what, as a whole, the conference needs to do when we're on TV. If we're playing a Power 5 conference, we're on TV, obviously try to win the game, but don't go out there and lay an egg, because you're representing the conference every time you step out, especially in the non-conference time of year. We're out there trying to represent each other. And that's what we have to get better at as a conference, is when we're playing earlier in the season against the Cincinnatis and the Dukes and all these bigger schools, that we have to buy well against them.
There's definitely a balance that has to be found between getting.
Hi, Jimmy.
Yeah. By the way, hello. I dropped in about 2 minutes ago, but I was enjoying the conversation so much that I just decided to listen for a second. So hi, Rashad. How's it going?
Hi, Jimmy.
Yeah. I guess the point that I was gonna try and make there is that we're trying to find a bit of a balance between representing the conference on a top level, which a lot of our teams are capable of doing. They are capable of winning some strong games, even teams that aren't near the top of the conference. But at the same time, you don't want to schedule so many of those games depending where your program's at. So if you got a team that's in the middle of the Horizon League as it stands, if you're scheduling five strong high majors,
you don't want to do that.
You're scheduling 5 real likely losses, and then if you finish in the middle or the upper half of the conference, then people go back and point at that and be like, well, if this is one of the best teams this conference has, and they went and lost to Ohio State by 25, and Ohio State's not even a good Big Ten League team right now, what does that really say about the Horizon League? I mean, there's a perception about it, and we do want to win those games, and we have gotten a few of them here and there. I mean, we've got to get more as a conference, but at the same time, we don't want to get a lot of embarrassments, because those work against us when our coaches are trying to go out and recruit, because we need to be able to pick up wins, and it needs to be against more. So I guess what I would say is I look more for Horizon League games against conferences that are at the level that we have been at and tried to aspire to be at, in that maybe not quite high major, like where we'll play those 5 or 6 best conferences, we'll play those games, but I also want to see us play more games against Valley teams, against Atlantic 10 teams. I'd love to see Detroit Mercy start taking on more of like the Siena kind of programs, that in the MAC, and like maybe not like the best teams, but teams that are not too far away from them, where there's some regional connection, but also games that are more winnable, and series that are more equitable. Maybe Detroit Mercy needs to start playing a 2-for-2 against whichever directional Michigan school is the best at the moment, because then that's 2 home games against a team that will maybe bring in some fans, but also be interesting to a recruit in Michigan. Something that's also, at the end of the day, like I said, winnable. So I guess that's where I'd like to see more of the scheduling point towards, and away from the Texas Southerns and like the SWAC and MEAC schools that are just kind of at like the bottom level, the Big South, those conferences that, you could win by 25 points and see your RPI standing go down by 20 spots. Like, I want to get away from those games specifically.
Okay. Well put.
I think I put Bob to sleep. I think what happened.
What? No, you didn't. To your point, I know I did want to ask about this too. I know there has been talk of potentially the Horizon League, to your point, Jimmy, specifically, partnering with some of these other mid-major conferences, like Conference USA, like the Sun Belt. I know were two conferences that have been kicked about with regards to scheduling. In terms with two conferences that are a little higher up on the mid-major scale, and I think would be infinitely beneficial for the HoriZone League in terms of scheduling. Rashad, where do you come out on that potential partnership with those conferences moving forward?
Well, it's always a tricky situation when you try to play the economics of how teams move and shape, because I mean, we had, I could talk about when I was there, we had, Butler was there, it was Loyola was there. If you look at this, guys, we've had two teams in a national championship and a Final Four that's come from the HoriZone League.
Yep.
And a lot of people don't talk about that. And it's crazy because I tell people all the time, like, when I was playing in HoriZone League, it wasn't an easy league. It was far from an easy league. Cleveland State was tough with the Damon Stringer and Sonny Johnson and Theo Dixon, and you had the tough Butler teams. You had the tough UIC teams with Mark Miller.
If I remember correctly, wasn't it your freshman year that there were like 3 out of the 8 teams went to the tournament?
Yeah, 3.
Yeah.
We had 3.
3 out of 8.
Then,
3 out of 12 is cool, but 3 out of 8 is insane. It's almost half the conference.
And that's from a mid-major. Like, you don't even see that happen anymore. So that shows you how strong the conference was when I was playing it. And then Butler leaves, they go to a national title, they go to a Final Four. Loyola leaves, they go to a Final Four. So the mid-major teams that has been causing damage in college basketball are HoriZone League teams.
Well, the funny thing, the Loyola one was the real surprise, because I mean Butler did their Final Fours from the HoriZone League, and we always knew that they were they had put together a pretty special program. But it was funny is that Loyola was a team that a lot of us used to kick around when I was in school from 2005 to 2010, and that was a team that we used to all kick around. Like, Loyola was not this world beater basketball team. In fact, I think they had usually finished in the bottom half of the conference while I was there.
They did.
And it was, for them, it was getting their donors that had been aging to put up the money and kind of put up or shut up, and they figured out that they need to, if they want to win before they're gone, that they have to get things started. And they did that renovation of the Gentile Center, which was, the Gentile Center was just a glorified high school gym, and it was it was renovated into this very small but very like arena atmosphere. Like, it was a real building. It's a real building now. And they built that Norris Center or whatever they call it on the side there. So they put the money into the facilities. The school took the program seriously, is what it came down to.
Absolutely.
So, and that was always the case at Butler, is the school took the program seriously. Once Evansville left the conference, a few years before Rashad came in, and then we had this, Butler started to turn around as a program, and they got strong right about the time Rashad got in school. So it was, that the MCC back then really got powerful because the schools that were there were taking their program seriously. And I think that's a huge problem at a lot of the I know for sure that Northern takes their program seriously. I know for sure that Wright State takes their program seriously. And a lot of people we made a lot of jokes about Detroit Mercy taking 2 months to hire hire the coach and hire Davis, but like I took it as a good sign, because it showed that Detroit Mercy didn't want to screw it up.
Wanted to get it right.
Exactly. And that's a good sign from the program there. I would like to see more of the conference kind of take that, take it seriously. And part of that is doing what people want to see. And we had about 2008 or 2009, the athletic department at Milwaukee commissioned a study they basically commissioned this poll of about 500 students, and they asked this 500 students, what do you want out of your athletics program, and really what do you want for your basketball team? What's going to get you to go to more basketball games? And the students were saying you got to play better teams, or the wide range of teams. Things they were saying was you have to play teams that I recognize. They're tired of playing teams like, unfortunately, Youngstown State is just it's not a good program, and it's always never been a good addition to the conference. But a lot of these teams in the non-conference, it's hard for these coaches to get good programs to come play them, but that's what needs to happen. So it's about getting some of those strong teams on the schedule, but also about doing what they can to get those teams to come in. Because I know that when Detroit Mercy got St. John's to come in, and they did the Dickie V, they renamed the court for Dickie V, like that. They got ESPN in there. There was a lot of attention, and the place was packed. And Callahan Hall, when it's packed, is an incredible, unique experience. And I was catching that on television. I've been there in person a few times, but the actual, I could see that it was a great spot on TV, and that was good for Detroit Mercy, and was good for the conference. So that's the kind of stuff that this conference needs. Is Rashad was saying, you got to play anybody anywhere. You got to play good teams, but we also have to figure out how do we get good teams to come in to Milwaukee and Detroit and Cleveland and Fairborn, Ohio, and Highland Heights, Kentucky. How do we get the good teams to be willing to come in and play them? And I think that one of the things that we can do is encourage schools to start adopting new clauses into their coaching contracts. VCU started this back with who was the guy that won for? Who was the first VCU coach?
Are you thinking of Shaka Smart?
No, I'm thinking of Capel. When Capel left, was it Oklahoma that Capel went to?
Yeah, that's it.
So when he went there,
it probably was.
VCU had Norwood Teague, their AD, had a clause in Jeff Capel's contract when he signed on to be head coach at VCU that if you leave, the school that hires you, as long as it's above, if it's a high major school, that school either owes VCU a huge buyout of this.
Yeah, that's how it works. Hey guys, I got to get ready. To run, guys. If you got any more questions, please ask me because I got to get ready to go. My daughter's about to perform.
I have one. I have one for you. What would be what was you in?
Say again.
I'm sorry. What was that, Jimmy?
When you were in the HoriZone League, what was your favorite game that you played?
Every last one of them.
Is there any one that sticks out in your mind that's like a big game for you?
They all were big. That's how I got to 23-19.
There you go.
I love
all right. So Rashad, thank you very much for coming on the show. Tell everybody where you can find him at sportstalk2319.com, and where can they find you everywhere else, Rashad?
Yeah, my Twitter handle's RP3Natural. You can find me on Instagram, Rashad Phillips RP3, and you can subscribe to my YouTube channel, Sports Talk 2319, or you can reach me via my website, sportstalk2319.com.
All right.
We will definitely look forward to seeing future episodes.
Thank you so much, guys, for having me on the show.
Thanks.
All right, thank you, Jimmy.
Take care, Rashad.
All right, take care, guys. Bye.
No.
That was cool.
That was Rashad Phillips, everybody.
have him on.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, and you missed the first part of the podcast where we were talking about the kids in the summer league, specifically Kendrick Nunn.
Yeah.
Kendrick Nunn's he's playing. He signed with the Warriors.
Right.
So, I mean,
I haven't gotten
I guess
much of the summer. I haven't gotten to see much of the summer league action. Is he doing? What's he doing in summer league?
He's averaging double digits right now.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he scored 18 in the game on Friday. So yeah, he is definitely. I think probably the big thing for him is going to be. I guess the big thing for him is going to be where he fits with the Warriors. I mean, he's going to be with the Warriors, for crying out loud. They've got 4 All-Stars on their starting roster, and they just signed Boogie Cousins. So yeah,
I say this about Boogie Cousins: he is going to miss half the year. And
I'm sure he is.
That's the kind of injury where you're never.
It's not
sure.
even going to matter, and that's the worst part of it all.
Well,
it's not even going to matter. He's going to miss half the year, and the Warriors are still probably going to be, one of the best teams in the Western Conference.
Well, the NBA has to figure out how to defend the three, because that's the big problem with that team is that they've got. Yeah. I mean, they've got 2 of the best, maybe 5. Definitely 10 best 3-point shooters of all time. So you have to do what you can.
It'll remind me.
Oh yeah, and by the way, Kevin Durant, who's maybe the second best player of the last 10 years after LeBron. So it's absolutely insane, the team that they've been able to put together.
I think the big thing with I really think the big thing with and we talked about it a little bit. Kendrick Nunn will probably bounce between. Since he's signed with the team, he's gonna probably bounce between the roster and the G League. Probably would be my guess.
Well, does he have a 2-way contract? Because I wasn't sure if he actually had a 2-way contract or if he was on the.
I'm not. I think he does. I know his first year is guaranteed. So
the other thing is, by the time in the next few years, the NBA is going to really set up the G League to be this this real home for players who are not quite at the NBA level who could get there, players who are maybe a little less touted in college who could get there, and also really to be the spot to develop once the one in.
What's that now?
So it's only going to be a few years before the G League is a legit, legit sports league. Maybe not like at the level. It's not going to be at the level of popularity in NCAA. There's never going to be anything like the tournament. But the G League does have an actual. The G League has a real a future. And Kendrick Nunn, those level players that'll be a part of it. If he's going to be able to help them around, who knows? But it looks like on Friday he scored 18 against the Clippers summer league team. Let's see what else is got.
But he's been averaging double digit because I think he's played like 3 or 4 games so far. Because I think they started out. I think the Warriors have started out with I think it was called the California Classic. If I want to say, I can't remember what it is, but it involved the Clippers, the Lakers, the Kings, and the Warriors. So he played all those teams and was doing pretty well on that front. But and so that's kind of and. Given kind of where he came from, I mean, let's face it, he was at one point in time a Big Ten, he was on a Big Ten roster. So I mean, there's some possibilities for him, I would think.
We got to get away from this idea that being on a Big Ten roster automatically makes you a player like more valuable than a player that was on a HoriZone League roster. Remember, Kiefer Sykes was never on Big Ten roster.
He was not.
That's something. I think it's something small, but it's something that we need to really work against as a conference. Is this idea that players cannot have a route to the NBA through the Horizon League, and I think that it's still the case that you can have that. So I want to get away from this idea. So whatever we can do as conference, as fans of teams in this conference, to be positive about players, positive about players' ability to step in, develop as young men, and develop as young basketball players, to set themselves up for a long professional career in the NBA.
Oh,
and they've already been doing it elsewhere, but in the NBA for sure.
True.
I want to get
one thing I did not know, by the way, that I was not aware of that Rashad was kind enough to point out. His Kendrick Nunn's G League coach just happens to be Willie Green.
No way, really?
Yeah, I know.
Fantastic.
I know Willie Green was. I knew Willie Green was an NBA was coaching in the NBA. I could not remember for the life of me where. And then he mentioned that he was he mentioned Willie Green being the summer league coach. So I'm like, oh, no kidding.
Well, who just got onto the into the NBA on a bench is Ronald Norred.
Did he now?
Norred. So when in Northern Kentucky's first year in the conference, he was on the bench at Northern Kentucky.
Oh wait, didn't Ronald Norred? Where did Ronald Norred go?
Ron Norred is he's on the Hornets staff right now.
Okay. Why did I think he was with Brad Stevens for some reason?
He was.
I do not.
He was.
Okay. Yeah. I thought that he would.
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought he went over to. He was at Northern Kentucky and he ended up joining Brad Stevens with the Celtics.
He graduated in 2012.
Yeah.
He was a high school coach in Indiana. I think it was Brownsburg, I want to say. But I know that when Brad became the head coach at Ron Five, he got on the staff with their D League, now G League team, which is the one in the Maine Lobsters or something.
Maine Red Claws.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember them because yeah.
From there he went to actually working with the Celtics, and then from the Celtics he was on Northern Kentucky for it was only a year, maybe 2 years. And then he got the head coaching job. He was the head coach of the Brooklyn Nets D League team, their G League team, the Long Island.
Yeah.
But this spring he got hired on to be a head coach for Charlotte, or not head coach, assistant coach for the Hornets. So
gotcha. Okay.
Pretty exciting for a former Horizon League alum.
Yeah, guy who was just in the Horizon League with Northern Kentucky not that long ago is now sitting on an NBA bench as an assistant coach. Yeah, that is something.
It's good, It's a good thing.
Absolutely. So So it's funny because we got we got Willie Green who's over at Golden State. You got Ronald Norred who's Charlotte, and of course Brad Stevens who was actually he made his bones in the Horizon League. So there you go.
Yeah, and the good news about basketball for a lot of Horizon League guys is that it's developing everywhere else in the world. That's been going on for
years though.
But as it continues and as it becomes more of a viable, as long as it becomes more of a viable, professional sports sports leagues in different countries, the more teams there are, and by that the more opportunities there are for guys that are maybe won't quite make it to the NBA because the Horizon League is one of those conferences that we've put a few guys there. But we've put a ton of guys, and I mean an absolute ton of guys, into professional basketball in Europe and South
absolutely.
America and China. And I mean, the Korean league is starting to get pretty good. I think Kiefer Sykes is playing in Korea.
Is he now? Okay.
Pretty sure Kiefer Sykes is playing in Korea. The more guys that we have playing outside the world, the more people from other places know about the conference. You know, we've lost some teams, but what matters is that we keep some level of positivity. I've really become a proponent of this idea that positive thinking is, through bad and good situations, thinking positive, moving forward, and really being an advocate for the players and the teams and the conference overall is what's going to help us kind of get back to where we were, and then, hopefully even higher than that. What I'd like in the next five years for a school like, I'd like for a school like Milwaukee or Northern Kentucky, Milwaukee if we could ever get back to this, or really a Northern Kentucky or Wright State right now. I want them to be able to, get an invitation from a conference like the Missouri Valley and go, you know what, I'd rather stay here. I'd like to see that. I do.
But Jimmy, has that ever happened though? I mean, has that ever happened where somebody got an invite and said, "No, I'm good"? I mean, what would it take? What would it take for this conference to do that, though? I mean, we've talked about this a lot, and we've talked about the fact that the HoriZone League and the MCC before it has always been a revolving door. How do you stop the revolving door? There's this crusty. I'll say there's this crusty old fossil that you, as somebody who lives in the Ohio State world, Andy Geiger, and this old fossil's playing jazz up in the Pacific Northwest right now, and he could probably answer the question of, has that ever happened where a team has turned down an invitation from another conference, or at least turned down, the beginnings of an invitation from another conference? He'd be able to answer that question better than I could. But is that so?
That's so. Somebody should call up the old guy if he's still alive and ask him that question. But what I will say is that what will it take? It takes winning games outside the conference, and right now the HoriZone League doesn't do it very well. The HoriZone League doesn't have. We don't have a set guideline for scheduling basketball games, and we have not been able to put together. I mean, there's rumors of it, but unless I'm mistaken, there hasn't been any kind of an announcement about a scheduling agreement with another conference. And the HoriZone League really needs to mitigate the possibility of mitigate these opportunities where really bad teams can come into HoriZone League gyms and win. And that has happened to every one of these teams in this conference. And as long as it continues to happen, the downswings on that will continue. So we need to figure out how to limit bad games that'll hurt this conference RPI. We need to figure out how to get better games, both home games that provide a higher percentage of winning, and some road games provide a higher benefit in the RPI, because flawed as it is, the RPI is still used by the selection committee in picking teams for at-large bids to the NCAA tournament. So there needs to be, I really do believe that the HoriZone League needs to figure out some kind of scheduling agreement. Also, if the HoriZone League is going to add 2 more teams to get to, what are we at right now? We're at 10 right now?
We're at 10.
And
yeah.
We're at 10. If we get to 12 or somehow 14, which I think Lacron mentioned that we could get to that at some point. If we're going to get to that point where we've got a bunch of teams, then we need to make sure that we adopt a schedule that protects the teams that we think are going to be in the top half of the conference, where you don't do a full round robin and limit the non-conference scheduling opportunities, but you do where you have one team, say a team is picked to be the number 1 team in the conference. That team will play a round robin against the other 5 or 6 teams that are projected to be in the top half of the conference. they'll play those teams twice. They'll play the projected bottom half of the league once, half of those teams on the road, half of them at home, so that you limit the amount of anchor RPI games that a major team can have. It's not been good for the conference, and scheduling is really where we're going to do it. And I will say that the guy that we really need, I legitimately believe that the HoriZone League should not just consult this guy, but maybe put him on as like an actual paid consultant. But Mark Adams from ESPN needs to be on some level brought into the fold by not just the HoriZone League, but other mid-major program school conferences, and to figure out how to lift us as a whole. Because Mark Adams wants what we all want, more mid-major at-large bids in the NCAA tournament. The last
He's one of the he has been one of the advocates for that for a long time, and I think it's probably when we can obviously talk about this way more as the in future episodes, but I think having somebody of that caliber, maybe again, even at the very least in a consulting role, that would be a huge thing.
So just to piggyback on my last point, heading into maybe I think Mark Adams is definitely somebody we need to get on the podcast at some point. I'd love to have him on. But
yes,
looking at
hey, we've gotten Dennis Felton and Rashad Phillips. Hey, Mark Adams, come on down.
Absolutely. Mark Adams is somebody I want on.
We're not messing around here with our guests.
So I look at RPIforecast.com when I look at things, because it goes a little more in depth than just showing strength of schedule and stuff. I'm looking at Wright State's page specifically, and what teams on their schedule on the schedule of their opponents have a positive or negative impact on their RPI. And because they play as many games against HoriZone League teams as they do, Detroit, Youngstown State, Cleveland State are the three schools that had the most negative impact on Wright State's RPI. And by going to 12 or 14 teams and limiting games against those that we projected, and if I remember correctly, all three of those teams were projected to be bottom half teams in the HoriZone last year.
And Wright State would have avoided an upset by Cleveland State.
Right. They would have had one game against those two teams rather than two.
Yeah.
And the other thing is making sure that the HoriZone League teams aren't playing these they're not playing these games that are torpedoes to their RPI, because those games, even if they don't have the ability to win, those teams will also have a bad effect on their own RPI. Mm-hmm. I'm looking at Youngstown State playing some really poor teams. They actually didn't have that bad of a schedule this year. Most of their because of where the HoriZone League has been, most of the bad games come out of the conference. As the conference gets better,
that's true.
Some, but we still need to make sure that they're scheduling good teams.
Yeah. So, all right. So that's going to wrap it up for this episode. We want to thank Rashad Phillips once again. Dominique Wilford, at Coach Wilford on Twitter. Big thanks to you for helping us set this up. Really appreciate it. Know you're a fan. Looking forward to hearing from you again. And definitely want to, again, thank you again for helping us set this up.
And if fans of the podcast want to see us, they want to see us interview specific people. I just brought up Mark Adams specifically. Please, people, tweet at him and say, hey, you should go on the HoriZone League Roundtable.
Absolutely.
I'd love to see that. If people want if people want other people, if you want us to go after maybe your head coach, or maybe one of your assistant coaches, or maybe somebody who used to be part of your program or something, we're more than happy to do it. Obviously, this summer we're not, we're only about a third of the way through the summer. Obviously, we got almost 4 months until season starts, so we got a lot of time.
Yeah, we got some time on our hands, so come on.
Yeah, let us know.
Yeah. Yeah, and we're on Twitter at HoriZone RT. And of course, you can hear all episodes of the HoriZone Roundtable at sportshacks.com, HAX.com, and you can listen to us wherever you can find podcasts.
Whoa.
Far too.
I have one thing that I just want to bring up.
What's that now?
I just got followed by Kyle Welliston on Twitter.
Wait, why? Wait, he's still alive?
Yeah, he went.
He disappeared off the planet. Did he? I thought he disappeared.
That's what I'm saying. What I'm saying. What is he doing? What?
I don't know. Mystery that we'll find out sooner rather than we will find out later. But yes, yeah. Well,
is our fearless leader considering putting out Fearless for a comeback? I mean,
I don't know, man.
The day that a mid-major finally breaks through and wins that national title, I'm going. That's the guy I'm going to be thinking about. Is that somewhere that guy's smiling, and I really want that to happen. Obviously for all of us, but for him for sure. So
well, I guess you'll have to do some investigation on that there, Jimmy, because that's going to be a weird. That's an interesting development because he disappeared off the planet like what 5-6 years ago.
Yeah.
4 or 5 years ago. Yeah, he disappeared. So that should be interesting. So, but the podcast, you can find it wherever you find good podcasts. You know the list. You know where iTunes. You know Pocket Cast. You know all those places. So come subscribe. We love to hear from you. And thanks for listening once again.
Take care, everybody.